You will be fascinated by some of the stories that she will tell you, and her life is a testimony to what the Lord Jesus has done in it. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Emma Owen.
Oh, say it again. You smell so good. You need to have a little smell when you give him a cuddle afterwards. Thank you for having me, David.
You are absolutely welcome, especially when you make comments like that. Emma, welcome to St Mary's. Welcome to Sundays at 7. I've researched, as you know, some of your background and some of your life. And I wanted to begin by talking to you and taking you back to your own early days when you were part of, you were telling me, of a loving church attending family with mum, dad, and elder sister. You were a regular church attender, but it didn't do much for you at the time. Just tell me what turned you off about church then, and if you still see the same things today.
Oh, good question. So I grew up going to St Edward's C of E Church in Romford. Good old Essex girl. Come on, you got to cheer. Come on, Essex girls. And to be honest with you, it wasn't that I didn't like church. It made sense. God made sense. Creation made sense. I did have a bit of a sore bum because it was wooden pews. Did kind of like the choir boys. They were, got a lot of attention. But it was when my mum left the church because her friend wanted to introduce her to a more lively church. This is when the free churches started, the happy clappy, the tambourines, arms in the air, ribbons and all of that. So my mum started going to a different church. So my dad and me and my sister stayed at the Church of England. She went to this happy clappy one. And then she kept trying to get us to go and join her. So my sister ended up joining her. So then we were split in half. And they were saying, Emma, you need to come. And I went, and I was just like, this is weird. Like, this is on another level. I'm going to stay with my dad in the Church of England. I feel quite comfortable here. And then it just got me thinking, why are they so happy? And then it started getting me asking those questions about faith, about religion. I loved the Church of England. Like, I loved the creed, I loved the scripture, I loved the worship. It made sense because it was based on the Bible. And the Bible doesn't change, does it? It's the Word of God and it's our foundation. But I think the thing was missing was that personal connection. And so I went back to this church where my mum was, and I just started watching, and then I realised these people actually have a relationship with God. And that's something that I'm interested in. And so then I was put in that situation. I'm the last one with my dad. Do I leave him all on his own? So that was a real difficult time. But I did go. I did leave. My dad's still at that church, and he absolutely loves it, and he serves really well. But that's why I moved, yeah.
The big spiritual change in your life came at the age of 12 at a concert. I think it was Louis Palau.
Yes, it was.
Just talk me through what happened and the impact it had on you.
So it came at a similar time when my mum introduced me to this new church. It was 1984, so you can do the maths, how old I am. And it was QPR football stadium. Louis Palau had come over to do this football stadium tour. So you can imagine the scene. I'm right up in the gods with my mum. There's like thousands of people, and he's sharing the gospel. And then he says, have you invited God into your life? And he points the finger, and obviously you think he's looking at you, and you're the only person there. And I'm like, oh my days, I have never invited God into my life. I've gone to church, I wore the t-shirt, I had the label, but did I have a personal relationship with God? And because I was on that journey, it just gave me that opportunity to say yes. Now, back in 84, we didn't have mobile phones. So I just run down to the front onto the football pitch. My mum's probably having kittens, thinking, where's my 12-year-old child? Thankfully, I did come back to her and we went home together. But I think that was the moment where the penny dropped. And it was like, there is a God, there's a creator of this universe. He's not just far out, but he knows me and he wants me to be in a relationship with him. And it was the $1 million answer to the $1 million question, why do I exist? And I believe the answer to that is to be in communion, to be in relationship with the creator, my creator, to know that my dad, the king of the universe, is interested in me, his daughter, who's a princess. And it just clicked in that moment. So that was quite life-changing for me.
Life moved on, and 4 years later, at the age of 16, you discovered, as you put it, nightclubs, dancing, boys, and drink.
Come on.
Just explain to me how that developed.
So as a child, I was very sporty, and it got me out of a lot of trouble because I wasn't on the bus with the girls that were getting into the bad relationships. I wasn't involved with the fights. I just went to school early, did hockey in my lunchtime, did hockey after school, just loved sport. And then when I was 15, Hollywood's nightclub came to Romford Town. It's all Hollywood's fault. And so I loved music. I loved dancing. So when I heard the nightclub was coming, I'm like, great, I am there. But the problem is I'm 15 and you have to be 21. But I had an older sister who had an older boyfriend who had a car. And back in those days, in the 80s, we had the back-combed, permed hair. We could slap the makeup on, put the white high heels and matching handbags. And us 15-year-olds could look a little bit older. So I got in, and me and my sister straight away got gold cards. We were allowed in for free. Arsenal football team were in the VIP lounge. So we got in for free. They gave us free drinks all night. We won prizes. We actually ended up going home with more money because they used to all do what's the dance when they sit on the floor? Oops, upside your head, say oops, upside your head. And like all the money would fall out the pockets, and we'd be like getting the £20 notes off the floor, being good old Essex girls, went home with 50 quid. So it was a great business money spinner. But the reality was I was a child in an adult environment. So going to the 16, I then leave school. I didn't want to go to university. I didn't want to stay on sixth form because all the sixth formers were goths, and they were very, at that time, I felt that they portrayed quite a depressive sort of personality. And I'm a big, loud person. I want to have fun. My big dream was to become a police officer. That was the dream, but they'd stopped the cadetship. So I followed my sister, started working for Coots and Company, the bank, got myself a good job working for the Queen. But then again, I'm a child in an adult environment. With any major city, particularly in London, every corner is a bar, a club. And so when it came to lunchtime, we didn't go out and buy a sandwich. We went down to the local bar, had a glass of wine. We had what was called a liquid lunch. And so I'm at Hollywood's nightclub at the weekend. I'm at bars after work. And things just spun out of control. I went to dance. I just wanted to have fun. I'm introduced to boys. Boys bought you drink because they wanted a cheeky little kiss at the end of the night. And before I knew it, I was regularly getting drunk. And it caused a lot of trouble, put it that way. So I had the label of being a Christian, but I didn't have the lifestyle. I didn't fall out of love with Jesus. I used to talk to all my colleagues about Jesus, but I didn't live the lifestyle because I bought into this club mentality. Let's go out, get the best out of life, and turn up to church on a Sunday morning.
How did your mum and dad cope with that?
I think it was probably a little. My dad probably just denied it and wasn't interested. My mum, it's an interesting one because she had a rule that when we came home, didn't matter what time of night, I had to go and knock on the door and wake her up. And so that'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Even in my last year at school, I'm sure she was having kittens because we didn't have mobile phones. She didn't know if I was safe. And I don't know, maybe she should have been tougher with me. I'm very tough on my kids because I know what I was like back then. But she was a praying mother. And I know we're not going to talk about this, but there's been many times in my life where I should have physically died. And I know that my mum prayed. And a very quick story, when I started dating my husband, Tim, He was down in Somerset. I'm in London. I used to travel, 4 to 6 hours to meet him. And one night I travelled back too late and I kept falling asleep at the wheel. And I do this weird thing. If something happens, I have to look at the time on the clock. And every time I fell asleep, I woke up, looked at the time on my clock, and then I fell asleep again, looked at the time on my clock. And then the last time I heard the juddering, as I was about to hit the central reservation. And I wake up, slam on my brakes, the car spins 360 degrees across 3 lanes, one way, across the other way. I can feel the impact of hitting the central reservation and the hard shoulder. And then I end up reversing into the central reservation in the fast lane with the oncoming traffic on the M25. Now, the last thing I can remember is an Arctic lorry behind me. And then you're in that panic. You're kind of in a movie scene. I don't know if you've ever seen that, and you think, if I turn the engine on, the car's going to blow up. Do I do it? Do I do a U-turn and play chicken with the traffic? Do I just get out of the car and run for it? Anyway, I decided to put the engine on. It didn't blow up. Did a U-turn, pulled over to the hard shoulder. The Arctic lorry is there because he's just seen it all. The man comes out. He's screaming at me, "You should be dead." And I'm like, it's okay. Checked all the wheels, drove home. Knocked on my mum's door, "Mum, I'm home." And this time was a little bit different. My mum said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I am okay." Why? Because I didn't want to tell her what had happened. She goes, "Well, God woke me up at 12 minutes past 10, 10 minutes past 11, and 7 minutes past 12. And they were the 3 times that I'd fallen asleep and looked at my clock. And she had prayed for my safety. She goes, "What happened?" "I had to pray for your safety. God woke me up." And I was like, whoa. Maybe there is a God out there. And there's many different stories. I had a major car crash in my police years, and God has kept me for a reason. Maybe it was to do all the stuff that I'm doing today.
Amongst all the issues in those difficult years, you also had an eating disorder. How common is this amongst young people today? And what is it down to? Is it down to low self-esteem? Because I hear a lot about young people with eating disorders. Well, what's going on?
Yeah, it's disordered eating is when you have an unhealthy relationship with food, and eating disorder is when you're diagnosed with that eating disorder, whether it's anorexia, bulimia, binge eating. A lot of people think it's a girl thing. Between 25% and 40% are guys that have eating disorders now. I think there's a lot of things that are going on. I remember when I had mine, someone said to me, "Oh, it's all in your head, you've got a mental health disorder." And I was like, "No, I haven't." But actually, we've just done some first aid training for mental health, and it is under the mental health situation. I think self-esteem is a symptom of what's going on. You have to find out why are you making that decision in the first place. It will affect your self-esteem, and the outcome is that disordered eating. For me, it was because I was so sporty at school, I could eat anything and I was super slim. And then when I left school and started working in the bank, suddenly I'm sitting on my backside every day, and I put on 2 stone probably in the first year. So that did affect my self-esteem, the way I viewed myself. I think it's very different now, 30 years later, because everybody's got a mobile phone, everybody's got apps, they're on their social media. Comparison, as we know, is a killer. So if you're only seeing people's highlight reels on social media and you're thinking they're really popular, everybody loves them, but I don't look like them, then I need to change the way I look in order to receive the compliments that they get. And then people start messing around with their eating habits, whether they're starving themselves, binging, purging, whatever that might look like. And for me, that was really what it was. I put on a lot of weight, and then I wanted to lose it. And then I was in a relationship with a guy, and I thought everything was perfect. And then one day he rang me up at work and said, "I don't want to go out with you anymore, Emma." And I thought it was a joke because he was a bit of a comedian. And he goes, "No, I'm being serious." And I just said, "Why don't you want to go out with me anymore?" And he said, "Emma, I'll be honest with you. Fat women don't do anything for me." And in that one statement, it was like he wrote fat on my forehead. It changed my identity. So my self-esteem was really good. And in that one conversation, it plummeted to an all-time low. And that affected the way I viewed myself. And then I thought, well, I've got a choice now. I either brush it off and believe he's not good enough for me, and there's someone better out there, which is what I should have done. But I made a bad choice that day and thought, well, maybe if I can change the way I look, maybe he'd change his mind and ask me back out. And so I started hitting the gym. I don't know if have you been to the gym? Do you go to the gym much, David? Do you work out? Have you got some biceps underneath that jacket?
Just ask the question here.
It's
No.
Have you not? Do you know what? It's hard work. Has anyone ever been to the gym? It's hard work, isn't it? And your body doesn't change overnight. So it wasn't working. So then I thought, maybe I should skip some meals. Do you like your food, David?
I do.
You like your food. And see, that wasn't working because I was skipping my meals. But I like my food. I was very hungry and angry at the same time. And so that wasn't working. So I thought the only way I can have come up with a solution is I eat all the food I love, the kebabs, the McDonald's, the big bars of Galaxy, swish it down with full fat Coke. I can eat all of that. Good Essex kebab is really tasty. But then within a few minutes, I then need to make myself sick because then the calories won't hit my body. And so this was just a genius idea because I'm in control. But then 2 years down the road, I realized I wasn't in control. I was making myself sick up to 5 times a day. And I realized I had an eating disorder called bulimia. And I remember sitting on my bed one day and I was just very depressed because they call it the secret illness. You don't want anyone to know because you don't want anyone to help you because you are controlling your intake of food. It's a very unhealthy relationship with food. And I got to this place, I was in a very dark place, and I just cried out to God. I said, look, I don't want this eating disorder anymore. I can't stop. Can you help me? But first I need to apologize that I'm punishing this amazing body you've given me and that I've not trusted you for everything that I need and want in my life. I need to apologize that I've not included you in my life, so I give you permission to come back into my life. I want to do my life how you want me to do it. And a cheeky little PS, I hear you're good at miracles. Can you pull one out of the bag for me? So that was how my prayer was. Now, I don't know if everyone believes in God here or if you believe in miracles that they can happen today. But I prayed that prayer, and the next morning I woke up, and it was the first time in 2 years I didn't even think of making myself sick, which was miraculous. So I didn't make myself sick. And the next day was the same, the next week, the next month. From that time to this day, I've never made myself sick. And I started thinking, whoa, this can't happen. You can ask any doctor or nurse, you cannot wake up from an addictive behavior for 2 years and it just to go like that. And then I started thinking, oh my days, I've been walking around with fat on my forehead for 2 years under this lie of who my identity is. I need to find out how God views me. And I started going through my Bible, and I started learning that God loves me, that I'm unconditionally loved, that he created me in his mother's womb. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm accepted. I'm acknowledged. He knows every hair on my head. And then I started thinking, well, who is this God who loves me so much? He's the creator of the universe, yet he loves me. He's the King of Kings. Yet I'm adopted, I'm chosen into his family. So if he's the king and I'm his daughter, if I'm a daughter of the king, who am I?
You.
Princess. I had to help you out there, Dave, didn't I? So I then recognize I'm a princess. And then suddenly, I want to adopt that over my life. I don't want to be fat or ugly or unlovable. I want to be who God intended me to be. I'm a princess. I'm co-heirs with Christ. I am loved. And so I share my story in schools and I say, do you know what? I don't need a boyfriend to tell me he loves me to know I'm loved, because the God of the universe tells me I'm loved. I don't need thousands of followers on Instagram to know that I'm accepted, because the God who created this universe tells me in his Bible that I'm loved, accepted, and valued. And that really was the massive changing point in my Christian walk, because not only did God turn up and do a miracle, but I actually learned who I was and I accepted who I was. And I think we live in a world today where we have an identity crisis. I think there's children, really young children, to the really old, mature, beautiful old age pensioners who still do not know who they are. And the Bible is very clear that we are chosen, that we are loved, that we are accepted. But the problem is we can't accept that because we don't think we're worthy. But we're not worthy, but we can accept it because of what Jesus did on the cross. And when we can accept what he did, that beautiful Easter story, the best love story ever written, then we can start understanding our worth. Because if you don't believe that Jesus died on the cross for you, you're never going to truly understand who you are. So, sorry, that was a bit of a long answer.
No, not at all. Your career history took you from banking to the police force, and then 28 years ago, you moved from London to Manchester with your husband, Tim. Now, Tim's with you tonight. But briefly, how did you meet and marry Tim? And tell me about the Worldwide Message Tribe.
Ooh, quite a few questions there. So, where shall I start? Because I had struggled with my identity, I always tried to look for love in the wrong places. So I looked for it in relationships with boys. And when I had this incident with this guy who told me I was fat, I just decided I needed to not look in those places. I needed to find my identity in Christ. And so I had a little conversation with my mum, and I wrote a shopping list. I said, this is what I want in a guy. This is my husband. At the top, he had to be a Christian. I'd never dated a Christian before. So I had to wait a couple of years. In this time, my sister and Tim's sister used to go to the Christian festivals like Spring Harvest. And they used to do the children's work. And there was a guy called Rich Hubbard who did PowerPoint. And both sisters had come home to us as siblings and said, you need to come and be on the children's team. So Tim did it before me, and then my girlfriend, my friend who's a girl, went, and she came out and said, you can't resist anymore, you've got to come. There's this really foxy guy called Tim, you're going to love him, you've got to come and meet him. So I did. That year, went and we met, and the rest is history. I won't go into all the details there, but so we met, fell in love, started dating, and I, at that point, was in the police force. Tim came out of university in the recession, so he ended up in an ice cream factory, and I just challenged him and just said, you've got all these creative abilities, God-given abilities, you're a drummer, you can sing, you can dance, why don't you give it back to God? And in that process, I ended up in a really major car crash in the police, so I lost my career on ill health. And I said to Tim, look, you've got to get a job now, and it's got to be paid, because I'm not getting any money now. You can go anywhere in the country as long as you get paid, but maybe do something for God. And there was a band called the Worldwide Message Tribe. And Mark Pennells had often said to Tim, because they were on the gig scene together, if you're ever available, give me a ring. So he gave him a ring, and Mark was like, I want to step down. This is brilliant timing. I'll give you a job. Tim said, but I've got a girlfriend. Can I bring her with me? So tell me about Emma. Oh, she really likes talking. She loves dancing. Oh, she can be in the band as well. So that was 28 years ago. We moved from London to Manchester, joined the Worldwide Message Tribe. Our heart was to be evangelists, to share our Christian faith in the high schools across Manchester and use our creative ability to do that. That was 28 years ago. Since then, we've set up 8 hubs across the UK, and we're in 7 different countries. And it's not just schools work now. We do prison work, community transformation, community groceries, work in deprived areas through a project called Eden. You name it, we do it. It's exciting.
You've talked a lot about your own childhood and your difficult years and how Jesus was looking after you through all these things and the miracles that you saw. But then you've now got children of your own, grown up now. How old are they?
So we have Destiny, who's 24. She's followed in our footsteps. She's in a band called Saints. So they go into high schools all over the UK and internationally. We have a son called Tyrese, who's 21, who's also in a band, but works for us at the Message Trust. And then we have a little 13-year-old who wants to be a farmer. So I'm going to give her to the Mitchells for a few weeks, see how that goes. But she does say to people now, I want to be a farmer, but the reality is my mum and dad will probably put me in a band, so I might as well get used to it. So who knows? Who knows?
For over a decade, you were the main female presenter on God TV.
I was, yeah.
With the tribe, which ultimately brought you to Respect Me and then the head of youth engagement. Tell me a little bit about your God TV days.
So that was great. So we were in the tribe at the time, so we were traveling the world at the weekends, winning awards, doing big festivals, but every Monday morning we were in school. And God TV approached me and just said, we'd love you to do one of our shows. And then I brought in some of my friends and we did The Dream on TV. It was like televised radio. We just had super fun, invited all the bands on. So it was great because people got to know who they were watching, listening to on the radio or on TV. And then suddenly I went from a Friday night, oh, can you help out on the Monday night? Oh, can you help out on the Wednesday night? And in the summer, can you come and film at Soul Survivor? Can you come and film at Audacious? And then suddenly I was on TV 5 nights a week. A bit of overkill, really. So if you had to watch that, I'm very sorry that you had to do that. But it was just super fun. It was lovely to be in your role, to interview people. Why did you write that song? What are you passionate about? Why do you do the job that you do? Why are you a Christian? All those great questions that inspire people. And so, yeah, we did that for a long time, and then the recession hit, and we all lost our contracts, which was really sad. Because God TV were the pioneers. They were the first ever European Christian channel, and then suddenly lots of other channels came up, and now, after COVID, every church televises everything, so we're all TV stations, aren't we? But it's great, because God TV were able to put church into people's homes. They were in a lot of prisons across the world. They did a brilliant job, and it was a privilege to be part of that journey. But in the recession, we lost our contracts, and then for the first time ever, the flesh in me was, well, what's next, God? Because I haven't got a job, and I've got a house, and I've got a family. How are we going to make ends meet? And I remember someone saying to me, well, why don't you just create a job? And I was like, what do you mean create a job? Ask God what he wants you to do. I'd never done that before. I never thought about doing that. So I started this journey of asking God, what's next? And a teacher rang me up. Well, he rang Tim up, actually, and said, have you got a girl who can come and do a lesson on relationships and sex? And we used to have a girl band, and they'd just finished. He goes, we just haven't got anyone anymore. I suppose I could ask my wife, and he was a big fan of the Worldwide Message Time. He goes, what, Emma Owen, would she do that? And so I wrote this lesson. I went in for the day thinking it was just a day. And God just ignited something within me, this fire and a desire to set up a new ministry called Respect Me. And we had spent so many years doing schools work, sharing our Christian faith. And when we did Q&As, all the time we would get kids asking us questions, particularly the girls. I've got a boyfriend, he's pressurizing me to have sex. What do I say? What answer do I give? And I just started thinking that kids these days don't even know how to make good decisions in life, let alone faith decisions. And I felt God was setting me on a journey of, how can we tackle the big hot topics of today? How can we help young people to understand their true worth and identity in order to make those good choices? And so that's where Respect Me was birthed. We started off with just one lesson, relationships and sex. And then we actually created age-appropriate lessons for every single year group. So we start off with self-esteem. Who are you in God's eyes? And we deliver that in faith and non-faith schools. And you may have heard the phrase, your relationship with yourself sets the tone for all other relationships. So then we build on it. If you know where you get your worth and value, and we would like to suggest that you look in the Bible and look at how God values you, then how do you value yourself peer on peer? So in year 8, we look at bullying. How do you relate in your romantic relationships? So sex and relationships. The next year, we look at your online relationships, so online safety, sexting, youth-produced sexual imagery. And then in year 11, we help young people to pull out of the darkness those difficult topics so they can be equipped to make good choices when they leave school. So we tackle all the abusive behaviours, eating disorders, alcoholism, cutting, domestic violence. Sounds really dark, but if we don't as church stand up and say, look, this stuff happens in the world, but we want to give you God's answer and solution, and we want to inform, equip and empower you to make really good choices. If we don't do that, we can't be surprised when we see the statistics. And then the schools were loving the program. Can you do something for our sixth form? So we look at consent and pornography. And then we created a boys course and a girls course. So if we speak to any teacher and say, have you got 10 boys in year 9, 10 or 11 that are struggling with respect or maybe on the brink of exclusion? They're like, I can list you 10 right now. And then we're like, well, we've got this course. We come every week for 6 weeks and we'll look at what it is to become a good man. And we'll tackle sexual harassment, consent, relationships and sex, misogyny, toxic masculinity. We'll look at all of those. And it's beautiful because it works. And I remember doing a pilot down in the Midlands with a school that was in special measures. Went back years later and they had the sixth formers serving us drinks, and there was a lovely guy in a lovely suit. He looked handsome. He gave me a drink and I'm like, I recognise you. How do I know you? And he goes, I was in that first boys course. I was about to be kicked out of school. That was my last chance. If I turned up every week to your boys course, then they were going to give me a second chance. I did it. Not only did I do it, I smashed my GCSEs. I'm just about to do my A-levels and I've got a position in university. Now, I'm not saying we're the answer, but we were part of that journey. And so because of the success of that, we've now created a girls course for those vulnerable girls, the girls that will carry the knife for their boyfriends, the girls that are going to look for love in the wrong places, go too far sexually because they're just desperate to be loved, but they think sex is about love. So if I have sex, then they have to love me, and then they realise they're not interested in a relationship. So then they feel more rejected than ever before. And so we've been doing that since 2011. We've now got 8 teams in 4 countries. And it's a rolling program, so we go back to the school every single year and we journey with students from the moment they walk in to the moment they walk out. And we give them a little card. It's called an I am card, and on it is the scriptures of what God thinks about them. I've actually got some on a little stand at the back, so if you want to take any for yourselves or your kids, take some of those. But it really comes down to understanding your true worth and value, and that's the message from Respect Me.
You are now the head of youth engagement at the Message Trust. What exactly does that entail, being the head of that?
So I'm responsible for creating great lessons and tours and rolling them out across the nation. I'm very fortunate that I work in partnership with my husband, who's head of creative development. So he puts together the bands. So we have one team that uses music as a platform to tackle the hot topics, and then Respect Me is a multimedia presentation. Now the bands do cost more money, so they tend to do fewer tours, but Respect Me is like the bread and butter. They're in the schools day in, day out. So the idea, the dream is we take a band in, maybe we do the No More Knives tour, we work in partnership with the local police and council, it opens the door to all the schools, and then the schools are like, what else can you do? And then we introduce them to Respect Me, so then we build on that relationship, and we're then in that school every single year, and then every 2 or 3 years we put the bands back in with another topic. So it just means we're not doing hit and run anymore. We're saying we want to work with you as a school. We want to help complement your PSHE program. We never apologise for being Christians. We'll always say we're Christians. We use scripture. We use testimonies, and the kids love it, and they ask for us to come back all the time. And it's just brilliant. The church needs to have a voice, and young people need to know what their true identity is. So if we want to reach young people, where are young people? They're in the schools. So as long as we got doors open, we're going to keep going into the schools, tackling the hot topics, sharing our faith, introducing them to the local church. We always take the local youth worker in with us, and they'll be like, come to our youth group on a Friday night. And the dream is to give repeated opportunities for young people to accept Jesus, place them in a Bible-believing, faith-filled church where they can start their journey with Christ. And that is the big dream. It's not always easy, but that's the dream.
That leads me beautifully on to the next question. Somebody put this question to me the other day. because they knew you were coming, and we've had a number of people from the Message Trust over the years.
Yeah.
And they said, I am a great supporter of the work of the Message Trust. But what is the follow-up structure to young people after they make a commitment to Jesus after an event, mission? How do you keep track of youngsters and encourage them to continue in faith? In other words, what is the follow-up structure after an event?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something that we're constantly challenging ourselves on. So we will never go into a school without inviting the local church in. We can't be everywhere at the same time. So because we're a touring team, we will go to Wales one week, Scotland the next week, but we rely on the local hubs. So we have 8 message hubs across the nation. And the reason we do that is that there are always people on the ground. So that local hub will build up relationships with the local church. So I may have a regional, I may have a national remit, but I also have a regional one. So I'm in charge of the Northwest as well. So we do a brunch every other month and invite youth workers to come, and we help equip them to do the best that they can do. We have resources. But after a concert where we boldly proclaim the gospel and give an invitation for young people to say yes to Jesus, we will then do everything that we can. So the churches will have a stand where they can advertise what they're doing in their locality. We set up a web page so the kids have got QR codes so they know what's going on that they can go to. We can't make someone go to church at bottom line, unfortunately, but we will encourage the youth leaders to put on something really exciting afterwards. So a classic example, we did a tour in Blackpool, and there was a big Central Church of England that had great resources, a big hall, a full-time youth worker, but then there was lots of other churches that worked with us that didn't have full-time youth workers, that didn't have big halls. So the big church were great, and they said, well, why don't we put on an event that all the churches together will be there? And it was a fun event. It was Nerf guns, curly fries and chicken nuggets. I mean, you invite kids to free food, they're going to turn up. Now, 100 kids turned up the week after our concert, which was brilliant. 6 months later, I called them, had a conversation with them. They still had 70 kids still coming. And not only were they going to the big church, some of them had spilled out to the local littler churches where they lived. The area dean emailed me a couple of weeks later and said, Emma, we've got a problem. All our church youth groups are full. And I was like, yes, it works. But it doesn't always work. And so we want to resource the local church. But I'll be really honest, we can't do the job for the youth worker either. So we want to inspire youth workers to start planning ahead of our tours. What are you going to invite the kids to that's going to be appealing, that's going to get them through the doors? Are you going to put on a Youth Alpha discipleship course? Are you going to do it on your own, or are you going to do it collaboratively? So we're always trying to do that. At the moment, we're creating a 3-part evangelism video series that should be up and running in January, and it's our gift to the local church, so that in the lead up to a tour, they've got these 3 weeks of video footage. So the month beforehand, they will look at a video, what is the gospel? The next week is why should we share the gospel? And the third one is, well, how do I physically do that? And so what we want to do is equip the young Christians in the youth groups to be the evangelists themselves. Now, I can stand up in a school, invite kids to a concert, they could come, and I can introduce them to the local church, the bands can do that. But isn't it better if you've got a kid in that local school sat next to his non-Christian friend, they're in the same lesson, they're hearing the band saying there's a concert going on, and that Christian kid says, all they have to do is say, that looks really good, I'm going to go, do you want to come with me? They don't have to learn how to articulate the gospel. They just invite their friend to the concert. And then when they're at the concert and the kids respond, then that Christian kid can say, well, actually, I go to church. You just put your hand up saying you want to become a Christian. Do you want to come with me next week? That kid's more likely to turn up to church. So what we're trying to do now is to invest into our young people and help them to be the evangelists. And so we're trying new things all the time.
This is really helpful stuff to know how not how it starts, but how it progresses. I've wanted to leave time, most important,
Yeah.
to talk about your campaign with young people called No More Knives. Now, most of us know about the events of last night, which is typical. I know that wasn't with children, but can I ask you how you challenge and counter young people and even children who say, I keep a knife for my own protection and defense? How do you alter that?
I know, it's super sad. When we go into schools, most kids will say they want to use a knife for that reason. They want to protect themselves. So the No More Knives tour was actually created by a police force over in Huddersfield back in probably about 2017-18. And my boss, Andy Hawthorne, thought, oh, that's really good. We need to have that in Manchester. And that was when knife crime was on the rise. 2019, there was over 1,000 young people had been admitted into hospital through being stabbed with a knife that year. And it really got our attention. And for me, it was like, as church, as Christians, what are we doing to help the situation? We need to stand up. And I'd actually got invited to Parliament to speak into a think tank around knife crime, and they'd actually entitled it The Fatherless Generation. And I thought that was really interesting. And basically what they were saying is young people are growing up without positive male role models today. And that's why gangs, they get invited to gangs. It's very appealing. It's like, I'll be your friend, I'll give you money, I'll protect you. So it's coming back to that protection thing again. And so when we're in schools, we learn from the police certain statistics. And what is encouraging is it's less than 1% of kids that carry knives. So it's very low percentage. But when that gets used, it devastates communities, doesn't it? And so actually, why don't we do a little bit of a competition? Should we do a little bit of a competition? So out of those who are stabbed, what percentage do you think are stabbed by their own knife because they've carried a knife for protection? What do we think? I've got a little bag here. I could give a little book out for free. Should we have a prize?
Yeah, go on.
Mark likes prizes, don't you, Mark? So I've got a few books in here, and you can choose which book. Who wants to have a guess? Out of those who are stabbed, what is the percentage of those who are stabbed by their own knife? What do you reckon? 20%. 20%. Okay. 50%.
80%.
80? What was it over here? So who said 70? Give them a round of applause. Come on down, the price is right. You get to one of my books. I'm not trying to belittle, because it was a bit of fun to get a prize. You can have one of those books, whichever one you want, being The Message, No Plan B, A Burning Heart, Finding Life After Death. Which one do you want?
I'll have the biggest one.
You'll have the biggest one. That's a good one. What a good one to have. Well done, well done. I mean, I found that quite shocking. 70% of people who are stabbed by their own knife. So when the police share that in a presentation, because we always go in with the police and they do a short presentation from the law aspect, I think that surprises young people because they might carry a knife, but they don't know how to use that knife. And we show a video of a guy who went on a bus. It was the first time he had a knife. There's an altercation. He drops the knife, so the guy picks up the knife and stabs him. But unfortunately, the way he got stabbed, he ended up being paralyzed, and he's now in a wheelchair. Now, I think it's fictional, the video that we use. It was created for the Home Office in an anti-knife campaign. But it's quite shocking, and I think it brings the reality of, if there's no knife, then no one can be stabbed. So actually, the message is don't carry a knife, because otherwise, in the first place, definitely. And then what we do in the lesson is our job really is to encourage young people to not carry knives. And so Evie, I love it when Evie says, do you know what, with this tour, normally we're in 6 to 10 schools. If we're in 10 schools, she'll say, we're going to do the same lesson to 10,000 people in your area. And they're all going to be asked the same question. Will you pledge, will you commit to not carrying a knife today? So I'm going to ask you, will you put up your hand and say, I'm not going to carry a knife? And all the kids put their hands up, the teachers put their hands up, and we say, look around the room. Not only in your year group, the 100 kids in your year group, or the couple of hundred kids, the 1,000 of kids in your school are going to put their hands up, and also 10,000 around. Do you think that will make you feel safer? And they all are shocked. They're like, oh my days, we can be part of the solution. We can be part of the change. And that's what we want to do. We want to empower and inspire young people to be part of the change. It's not going to stop everybody, but, at least we can stop in some circumstances. But yeah, it's sad. We just need to stop people from carrying knives in the first place.
Yeah. As ever, we go on, an hour goes like 2 minutes and so on, and there are other things. But just a few basic pointers to finish with. Do you get a lot of support when you go into areas with campaigns from the likes of the council, the police, and the churches? You don't get any resistance in that area, do you?
No, this is what's remarkable. When the Message Trust started, we used to just do straightforward RE lessons, looking at faith, looking at the Bible, looking at prayer. Loved those days. Sadly, schools have changed a lot now. Not all schools want there to be a faith element. They want to be unashamedly academic. Because of knife crime being what it is, the police want to work with us. Police have to go in and do anti-knife crime lessons, presentations all the time. They see what we do and they're like, our stuff is boring. When we work with you, you have a platform. You can reach young people in a way that we can never reach them. Music is that universal language that covers all cultures, boundaries, ages, genders. It's just so powerful. So we write songs. Tim's really good with the team. We have brilliant producers and songwriters that write like No More Knives songs, and you get the kids there chanting, lay your knives down. If you have a look on our website, have a look at the promo video, and you see hundreds of kids at the concert singing Lay Your Knives Down. It's wonderful, but they're also singing content that is faith-filled and all about God as well. And so it's really, really powerful. And so what we're finding now, even though we always unashamedly Christian and we don't deny who we are and why we do things, we have police constabularies get in touch with us, we have councils get in touch with us, and they say, we hear you're the best, we want to work with you, and we want to pay to put you in the schools. The last sort of 5 years, there's been a lot of funding because of the rise in knife crime, but that funding was only for 5 years, so that all stopped last Easter. So we're in a new era where there's not as much funding from the police and council, so we're trying to navigate that at the moment. But we don't want to do any project without the local church. We don't want to forget our reason for going into schools, and that is to shine the light of Jesus. And we do that by saying, you know what, even with the hot topics of knife crime, counting lines, it all comes down to understanding your worth and value. And if you don't know that, you're going to make decisions that don't represent that. And so we've now created a County Lines tour, which is kind of part B of the No More Knives. And it really does break down the whole topic of belonging. So many kids that get caught up into gang lifestyles is because they're desperate to belong to a family. So when a gang says, we will provide everything that you need, and it all seems very attractive until they're trapped and they can't get out, and then they're in an abusive relationship. We need to make sure as church we're saying, well, actually, the only place that you're really going to belong is in the family of God. It's only God that can love you unconditional. It's only God that can provide your needs. It's only God that can give you a hope for your future. And so when we share our testimonies, we call them stories of hope, because everybody has a story of, this is where I was, this is what happened that went wrong. But when I found out who I was in God's eyes, then it all changed around.
2 quick final questions. You've put together a stand over by the entrance. What would you like people to look at on the stand?
Yeah, well, we'd love you to come over. Tim and myself, we'd love to say hello to you guys. We've got some flyers about the schools work that we do. So if you have any connections with high schools or any connections in the police or the council that may want to partner with us, we would love to take my business card. We would love to hook up. I would love to do some work in this area. We've never really done work in Merseyside before, so that is something. I've got a lot of churches that want to work with us. So we just need to get funding. If you know people who've got loads of cash that want to sponsor some tours, then get in touch. But we have like these little books, bags. They're called partnership bags. They're full of books, CDs, all sorts of information. And the reason we do that, we are a charity, so we rely on people sponsoring us. As employees, we need to raise our own personal support. So if you feel like you want to partner with us, because not everybody can go into a school and share their faith, not everyone can sing and dance, but maybe you're able to donate £25 a month to see that we can give our resources out for free. It costs £1.50 to put a kid in our classroom. And so maybe you want to sponsor some kids to go through our program today. If that's you, if you feel like you could do that, if you could pray for us, if you could give financially monthly, we would love to give you a little partner pack to say thank you, but also that you can read about the message, the heart behind it all, and we will give you newsletters and things like that. We'd like to keep in touch.
And that's on the stand, which is by the door as you came in.
Thank you.
A final quick question. What would Emma Owen value prayer for at the moment?
Me personally, or the work that we do?
You personally.
I think if I'm really honest and really vulnerable, it's that work-home life balance. You can speak to my husband over there. Wisdom. Because I'm so passionate about what we do. It literally saves people's lives. The No More Knives tour saves people's lives physically. It saves lives spiritually. And I'm so driven, I don't know when to stop. And that has a toll on the family at times. That's me being honest and being really vulnerable. Trying to raise money is a burden for it. I just want to give everything away for free. But I love it, and God is a good God, and we see miracles time and time again, relationships, opportunities, funding. I cannot deny that God is not real. He's so gracious, so giving. I just wish we could do more and more.
Emma, it's been fabulous sitting here, listening to your ministry, what you have to say, and your life, and your journey. Ladies and gentlemen, Emma Owen.